Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing good. So here in this video lecture, we are going to talk about why AWS matters for data science. I have listed down few concepts on the basis of which I am going to cover this title. And these concepts are scaling, storage, compute, AI APIs. But before we are going to get into deep dive, we need to answer two questions. And on the basis of these questions, you will be able to understand how and why AWS gives you the foundation to scale, store, compute, and deploy AI at production level far beyond what a local laptop or even an on-prem server can handle. So let's start with my first question, that is, what is AWS? AWS is one of the leading cloud provider in the market. Now, being a leading cloud provider, what AWS offers you that we are going to cover soon. But we also need to understand at the same point of time what is cloud computing. Cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing model. Now, I have taken another definition for cloud computing, but before discussing that definition, I want to clear the first one. Because if first definition is clear in front of you, then you will be able to get an understanding on the second one automatically. So let's extract few keywords from the first definition. On demand means whenever you need it. You don't have to plan in advance if you are not sure about the consistency of your business application. IT resources means infrastructure or servers. Over the internet means online. You don't have to go anywhere. So let's suppose if you are based out in Mumbai and you are planning to provision your infrastructure in somewhere in US or North Virginia or any other geographical location around the world. You can do that simply by getting and provisioning the resources online. So AWS or any other cloud provider gives you a benefit called Go Global in Minute. Pay as you go pricing model means as much you are going to use, you have to pay for that. So if you are using a compute resource, let's suppose for an hour, you have to pay for an hour. You don't have to invest the complete capital in advance. Now, as you got an idea that here we are talking about online, we are talking about virtual resources. So that gives me the second definition, which I have taken in front of you, and that is cloud computing asks you to stop thinking about your infrastructure in terms of hardware and start thinking in terms of software. We can correct it. You can see here. Okay. Means you don't have to think anymore about your infrastructure in terms of physical hardware. Now remember one pointer. It does not say that physical hardware does not exist at all. It exists, but that will be managed, that will be taken care by cloud provider. In our case, it will be taken care by the AWS. What you get, what you provision, everything you do virtually or over the internet. Okay. So this was the basic concept which you had to get an understanding on, so that now you will be able to relate the concepts or the technical jargons I am going to use in front of you. So let's cover one by one. Let's start with scale. What do you mean by scaling, or what do you mean by scale? Scaling is the ability of a resource or a system in order to scale automatically based on the change in demand or based on the change in traffic. A very simple example which I give to all my candidates, that is supermarket. So let's suppose over the weekdays the crowd is very low, okay, or there are very less people who are visiting the supermarket. So there are less number of billing counters open in order to serve those customers. But over the weekend, the crowd is very high. So in order to deal with the increased number of traffic, or you can say that in order to deal with the user base, we need to open more billing counter. That is the concept of scalability. Now, when we are going to talk about data science workload, data science workflows often start small, but they grow faster. Means here, how AWS can help you out with. AWS provides elastic scaling. Elastic scaling means automatic scaling. So you can start with a small machine and you can scale up to GPUs or distributed cluster based on your workload or based on your need. Okay. And if you want to get into deep dive, just understand you can scale your resources by resizing them. You can scale your resources by changing the count of the resources. Okay. Now, this elastic behavior or the elasticity prevents bottleneck in training large models or processing massive data sets. That is the first point which is proving why AWS matters for data science. Now, when it comes to storage, data sets in data science can range from MBs to petabytes, even more than that. And if I have to give you a definition of data, data is the collection of discrete values or raw elements which will be converted into information when ready to give you business insight or when ready to drive the business decisions. So now the first need is where to store that raw data or where to store that data in a native format, which can act as a single source of truth. So in this case, AWS offers you a wide range of storage options, starting with a simple and the most effective one, that is S3 or Amazon S3, which stands for Simple Storage Service. Now, the definition itself is giving you an idea that S3 offers you unlimited amount of storage, and you can store any amount of data or data in any format or a raw format in S3. Now, the single liner is automatically giving you an idea that you can store your data from MBs to petabytes or more than that with a cost effective storage option. When we are going to get into deep dive on more features of S3, that is going to give an idea that we can get cost effective options, we can get a single source of truth, and we can leverage many more benefits and many more features of Amazon S3. Now, S3 is not the only storage class. Again, based on your need, like how you want to store the data or where you want to store the data, you have wide range of storage and manage AWS services. When it comes to compute, compute means computer, means machine. So basically, that heavy machine learning training or feature engineering and simulation requires significant compute or significant processing. Now, AWS offers you the wide range of instances or wide range of virtual machines. Okay. So you can set up the EC2 instances, which is a foundation for a virtual machine with the GPUs or TPUs for deep learning. Along with that, AWS offers you the wide range of pricing options you can make use of in order to save the cost. Let me start with one of them. Let's say spot instances is one of the pricing option in AWS. What spot instances offers you? Spot instances ask you to make use of unused or spare capacity of EC2 instance at a lower cost. Okay. But at the same point of time, also remember one statement which I always apply, that is, cost comes with comfort. When you're looking for more comfort, things would be more expensive. But when you are okay to compromise on certain aspects, or if you have a backup already running parallelly, you can explore different pricing options. Okay. Along with that, we have many AWS managed services. Let's say one such service is SageMaker, which provides you an end-to-end machine learning workflow, like starting from training, tuning, deployment, you can do very easily in the AWS. When it comes to AI APIs, so as I told you, and again I'm going to repeat, AWS offers you a wide variety of managed services or serverless options. Now, few people get confused on the serverless option. Serverless means without managing the underlying infrastructure or without gaining visibility into underlying infrastructure. Now, AWS abstracts away complex infrastructure with ready to use AI services. Like if I have to list down some of the AI services in front of you, starting with Comprehend, which is used for natural language processing, then we have Rekognition, we have Transcribe, speech to text, we have Translate, which is used for machine translation, and many more. These services lets data scientists and developers integrate AI without building everything from scratch. We have manage MLOps pipeline in SageMaker, which can handle monitoring, retaining, deployment, and it is also critical for productionizing DS projects. So from here, you can conclude that AWS turns data science from a lab exercise into scalable, production-ready AI systems. Now, before I'm going to move towards my next discussion, let me again bring a very important question in front of you. And that is, if I'm going to ask you all a question like, what is the benefit or what is a major advantage of cloud computing? Now, I'm expecting a lot of answers. Let's say you can think about high availability or scalability or cost effectiveness or fault tolerance and many more. Means we can use so many technical jargons. But what I believe that whenever we talk about major advantage, that is flexibility or agility, I can prove that with the help of an example. And for that, I have taken a situation in front of you. So let's say we have an insurance company, any company you can take into consideration, a dummy name, www.example.com. Now, major goal of any company is to provide a better customer satisfaction, or is to come up with more products in the market in the less amount of time. So I have taken two scenarios here. In scenario number one, this insurance company is focusing on business growth as well as in the infrastructure management. In scenario number two, this insurance company has outsourced the infra provisioning or management part to the AWS, and the company is looking or taking care about a business growth. So, very simple question like in which scenario company productivity would be more? The answer would be scenario two, because here company is getting more time to focus on their business growth. And that gives you the major advantage of cloud computing means be agile and reduce time to market. So you need to keep all these pointers in your mind that will set up a foundation for all of you to start your journey in cloud or to leverage the benefits of AWS as a cloud provider for your data science role or for your data science workloads. Don't worry, I have a lot more to share with you, and I am going to talk about many more concepts in front of you. So soon, I am going to come up with few services introduction in front of you, and I will be giving you a guidance like how you can start your journey in the AWS or how you can start exploring AWS services. Okay, so let's start with the quick introduction to AWS ecosystem. I have listed down few services in front of you, and these are S3, EC2, IAM, and SageMaker. Now, the best way to learn something is to start with a problem statement. So, let me give you a problem statement, and then we are going to introduce AWS as the cloud ecosystem that is going to solve my problem. So, my problem statement is data science needs data, compute power, and scalable infrastructure. And on the laptop or a local machine, the limits hit very quickly. So now let's break it into four pillars which we are going to understand to solve our challenges. Starting with S3, which stands for Simple Storage Service, you can call it as a storage backbone. Now let me give you an analogy to the S3 first. So assume S3 as a giant hard drive in the cloud, but it never fills up, never breaks, and you only pay for what you use. means you don't have to procure the storage in advance, or you don't have to pay anything in advance. You are going to pay as much you are going to use or as much you are going to consume. Now, before I'm going to talk about the key features for data science, let me give you a one-liner statement for S3. So if somebody asks you what S3 is, you can say S3 is an object storage service which is providing you the cost-effective storage option to store unlimited amount of data in the AWS. Now let me give you certain features for the data science. Starting with the first one, store raw data. So in S3, you can store data in any format or its native format, like you can store data in CSV, JSON, images, logs, Parquet, or any format. S3 provides you integration with many AWS services. From the area of our interest, you can say that it integrates with machine learning services. SageMaker is one of the very good example. Means SageMaker can read or write the data directly in and from the S3. Okay. And it provides you the cost-effective long-term storage. There are many features of S3 which you can leverage in order to serve your workload. Like one such feature is S3 storage classes. So S3 provides you different storage classes designed for different type of workloads, different type of access pattern, and even come up with the cost effective options. Let me give you some example use cases. So let's suppose you are looking for a single source of truth, or you want to design a data lake where you can collect the data from multiple sources and dump into S3. One more use case, later you can query that data using AWS managed services like Amazon Athena or SageMaker AI or SageMaker for training purpose. Okay. Let me give you an exposure to EC2 before I am going to talk about on the further topics. So EC2 you can call as a compute power. Whenever you have to start your journey in the cloud, or whenever you want to start from the basics, EC2 comes into picture. EC2 gives you foundation of the compute in the AWS. Means if somebody asks you what EC2 is, it gives you virtual machines on demand. Now, one more pointer you always have to remember, every service in the AWS come up with an identifier. Like for EC2, the identifier is instances. If I have to give you an analogy for EC2, you can say that instead of buying a new powerful laptop for each experiment, you can rent the exact machine you need for a few hours. There are so many examples you can use in order to relate this concept. For example, renting a car, renting a house, or renting a machine in order to run your workload. Now, if I talk about the key features for data science, starting with CPU instances for lightweight tasks and moving towards GPU instances for deep learning training. AWS provides you elasticity, means automatic scaling. You can scale up when training big models and scale down for the inference. Again, AWS provides you different pricing option. Like one such pricing option is spot instances, which offers you from 70 to 90% discount, or you get 70 to 90% cheaper for the non-critical workloads. Example use cases, let's say if you have to train a computer vision model, okay, you can launch a GPU instance, you can run the training, and then you can shut it down when done. So idea is EC2 is providing you the computing need which can help you out in order to leverage the benefits of AWS. Now security is an important aspect, like apart from all the foundation layers which we add in order to build our model, we always need security. And if you have to deep dive into security, you need to start with access and identity management, and there comes into picture IAM. Even the full form itself gives the definition: identity and access management. Now, very simple statement which I always give to my candidates to learn IAM is who has access to what. So here, who is an entity who makes a call to perform an action in AWS? What is an AWS service or a resource? And when I say access is nothing but a set of permissions which is allowing you to perform certain action. It means if somebody asks you what is IAM, you can say a permission system. So IAM is like the key card system in an office building. It ensures people only enter the rooms they are allowed into. Segregation of duties or principle of least privileges. Only grant that much access which is actually required, or don't be too much lenient. If I talk about some key features for data science, starting with defining roles, means who can read write data, who can launch servers or deploy models, means IAM provides you role-based access control. You can avoid security risk. Let's say you don't want interns in order to delete production S3 buckets or production resources, you can restrict it. So starting with the IAM, you can set up a foundation for security. If I give you an idea on the example use case, you can say, let's say I'm talking about a SageMaker notebook role with access only to specific S3 buckets. So how to control the access, how to manage the identities, everything will be taken care as a part of the IAM, identity and access management. There are two important keywords which you can make a note of in order to get an idea. One is authentication, another is authorization, means validating the identity and validating the access. Now, when it comes to SageMaker as a part of the AWS ecosystem, you can say it provides you end-to-end machine learning platform, means it explains what is required in order to run your workload. For example, it is giving you a managed machine learning service. Okay. So if somebody is asking you what is SageMaker, you can call it as a managed machine learning service. Now, why it matters? It matters because most data scientists' time is spent on infra setup. Now, SageMaker simplifies this. Even AWS provides you with the serverless options. So core features is you can build, means you can have the features like Jupyter notebooks, or you can make use of a data preparation features. You can train distributed training like GPU scaling or AutoML. You can tune automatic hyperparameter tuning. You can deploy one-click scalable endpoint, and you can monitor in order to basically detect the drift or to retain the pipelines. Example use case, for example, data in S3, you are pre-processing the data in a SageMaker notebook. You are training the model on GPU cluster. You are deploy as an API endpoint, and then you are monitoring the predictions. Okay. So all these are the pointers I wanted to highlight in front of you in order to give you an idea that how AWS turns data science from an experiment on your laptop into scalable, production-ready system. So start small, experiment with these services, and you will see how AWS becomes a backbone for the real-world AI projects. Now, if a question comes to your mind, like how and where we are going to explore it. So soon, I am going to help you out with the AWS account creation, means how you can create an account in the AWS and how you can start exploring AWS services. For the time being, let me take you all to my AWS account. So this is my AWS account, and this landing page is known as AWS Console Home. So basically, it is a graphical user interface. It is also known as management console. Okay. So now, if you have to talk about these four services, you can simply search the service in the search bar. For example, if I'm starting with S3, I can read about S3 more from the S3 dashboards. I'm also going to help you out with some assistant which AWS offers you in order to explore the AWS documentation. Now from here, you can get an idea what Amazon S3 is. Store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere. In a similar manner, you can see how it works, what are the benefits and features, what are the use cases, and many more. So basically, you can explore as many services as you want by navigating to the service dashboard and by gaining an understanding what that service actually provides you. So this was all about the core services which I wanted to cover in front of you so that you can start your journey smoothly in AWS. Now I am going to come back with my next point of discussion where I will be talking about how to create and set up an account in AWS and how to create your first IAM user. Okay, so now let's move towards the next part of our activity, that is setting up an AWS account. Following that, we are going to talk about creating an IAM user, command line interface setup, and then I will be guiding you how to set up a basic billing alerts. Now, all these pointers are very important, especially when you are starting your journey in the AWS cloud. A very basic question which somebody can ask you: how to start exploring AWS services, or what is a prerequisite if you want to start your journey in the AWS? The simple and straightforward answer would be an active AWS account. An active AWS account will be giving you a platform to explore AWS services. So soon, I'm going to guide you how to create an active AWS account with the step-by-step instructions. So without any further delay, let's talk about it. So this is my browser. You can choose any browser of your choice. Okay, I preferably choose Google Chrome. Okay, if you want to choose Microsoft Edge or any other browser for any activity going forward, you can do it. So here on internet, you have to type create and activate AWS account. And when you are going to do it, the first block, which is provided by AWS Repost, as a part of which you are going to create and activate an AWS account. It is a step-by-step documentation. That's the reason I follow this whenever I have to create a new or a fresh AWS account. Now you can see they have given you different sections like initial setup, what you have to do, account information, payment setup, identity verification, and choose a support plan. Now, the thing is, AWS keeps on updating its features and policies. So before you are going to start with AWS account, you need to understand about AWS free tier. Because recently AWS has updated the offerings for the free tier, or I can say that all the new customers who are creating an account after 15th July 2025, they are going to get some new updates, or they are going to get some new way of using an AWS account. So type on internet, everybody, AWS free tier, and you will be redirecting to the free tier documentation. How? You can see we have many links. Let me click on free cloud computing services. Before I am going to give you an overview on free tier, my quick question to all of you: what comes to your mind when you are seeing this word called free tier? Maybe some of you would be thinking that free tier means free. Some of you would be having an idea that free tier means everything free all the time. Okay. But let me help you out to clear this concept. Whenever a keyword free tier comes in front of you, it does not mean everything free all the time. There is always a limit or a quota associated with free tier which you have to keep in your mind. Now you can see, did you create an account before July 15th? Access the legacy free tier. So if you already have an AWS account, you can go through this in order to get an idea about a legacy free tier. But as I told you, AWS has updated its policy. So all those accounts which will be created after 15 July, even yours, if you're planning to do it now, or if you're planning to start exploring AWS services. So here you can see, new customers can get started at no cost with AWS free tier. And the point is, AWS is going to give you some service credits. Now, obviously, you can't redeem these service credits or you can't encash it. You have to use these service credits for exploring the AWS services. Okay. So when you're going to do a sign up, the first time you are going to get $100 USD credits immediately. And remaining $100 you are going to earn when you will be exploring key AWS services. So you don't have to worry about it, will automatically keep on adding in your account. Okay. You can test drive the AWS services with a free plan for up to 6 months. Now they have given you 2 pointers like free plan and paid plan. Obviously, we don't have to go to a paid plan if we are just starting a journey in the AWS. And I always or highly recommend to my candidates that start with a free plan. But before starting with a free plan, please read the instructions very carefully, like what you are going to get as a part of a free tier or a free plan. Okay. You can experience AWS for up to 6 months without cost or commitment. You are going to receive up to $200 USD in credits. Include free uses of select services. Remember, services are selected, services are not all. AWS offers you almost 200 plus services, so not all the services are covered as a part of a free tier. No charges incurred unless you switch to the paid plan. Means you have to switch your plan to the paid plan, then only the charges will be added to your account. Okay. Till the time, like whenever you have the active service credits, or you can say that till the time your credits are not getting expired or 6 months is not getting over, whosoever is going to get first, the credits will be used in order to pay your bill for exploring the AWS services. Keep that in your mind. But at the same point of time, I'm again rephrasing this term, or I'm again giving you a statement that you have to consider either you are going to use these service credits first, or if 6 months will be completed first, then service credits will be lapsed. Okay. So use it wisely and carefully. Access to all the AWS services and features, it's not true. Like AWS has revised its policies, and now, as a part of a free plan, you will not be able to access all the AWS services. If you want to do that, you have to switch to the paid plan. But obviously, and yes, I can say that to start with, there are a lot more to explore. There are a lot more to practice, which you can do as a part of a free plan. Okay. You can also explore the offers like what comes under free tier products. So I always follow this policy. Let's suppose if any student of mine is asking this question that, so is this particular product comes under free tier? My simple and straight suggestion to my students, explore the free tier documentation. Obviously, I help them out in order to do it. And the reason behind this is AWS keeps on updating its policies, so it's better to get up to the date. And for that, you have to follow the documentation as right now I'm showing to all of you. Okay. So once you have developed the understanding of free plan, now you are good to start with the AWS account creation. What all things you will be needing? You will be needing a fresh email ID, okay, a fresh name. Why I'm talking about a fresh name? Because these days I'm seeing a lot of changes, and I'm seeing that sometimes it happens if by any chance your detail is existing in the AWS database, at the end you will be getting a pop-up saying that you're not eligible for free plan. If you want to basically subscribe for the paid plan, you can do that. Obviously, you have to approve it, then only you will be subscribed to the paid plan. Okay. So these are just high level suggestions which you have to keep in your mind. Fresh email ID. Okay. AWS always asks for the PAN card. So if you have a PAN card, you can provide that. You can choose the option, yes, I have a PAN card. Otherwise, if you don't have, no need to worry about. You can say, no, I don't have a PAN card. Okay. Along with it, you will also be needing payment details. Okay. When I'm talking about payment details, you need an active debit card or credit card. Okay. If you have any query, you can always search for a block called Learn Accepted Payment Method for AWS. Okay. And it is going to redirect you to what payment method does AWS accept. I can search for India, because we can have many accounts. You can see for India, credit and debit cards issued by Visa, MasterCard, Rupee, or American Express. Okay. So while you are doing a sign up, you have to use these accepted payment method. Now you would be thinking, or a question will be coming to your mind, if we are going to sign up as a part of a free plan, why we need this payment method? Don't worry. Nothing would be deducted from your account. It is simply just for verification purpose. Okay. An initial amount of 2 rupees would be deducted, that is going to be reverted back to your account. Okay. So the only purpose of this deduction is to verify, is for the verification. So don't worry. So again, you will be needing a fresh email ID which is not existing in the AWS database. Okay. If you have a PAN card, you can use that. If you don't have a PAN card, you can basically select no, I don't have a PAN card. Okay. And once you are ready with all these things, you can start creating an AWS account. So go back to the first link and say visit the AWS homepage. It will be redirecting you to the page from where you can sign up to the create account. You can see create account, and it will be asking you certain details to fill which you need to add. So once you are going to add those details, you will be moving towards the account creation. Okay. So I already have an active AWS account. So there would be a possibility it is redirecting me to my login. Okay. So what I will be doing, let me quickly do a sign out. And let me go back to this particular page one more time. Okay. You can say create account. So I'm just giving you an idea what all details you have to fill up. You can see sign up for the AWS. So here you have to provide root user email address and AWS account name. So this is a unique identifier or a unique name which you are going to give to your AWS account. Okay. AWS is going to verify the email address, and on the basis of that, it will be allowing you to start creating an AWS account. Okay. If you already have an existing AWS account, you can click on sign in to the existing AWS account. So follow the screen or follow the steps which are visible to you on the screen here. And finally, you will be able to create or sign up for the AWS account. Okay. Always refer this particular article if you are having any doubt with respect to steps you have to follow while creating an AWS account. Or I can say that only follow the on-screen instructions. Okay. When you are going to do a sign up. Okay, so I hope now your account is ready. And if you are ready with your AWS account, let's do a sign in to our AWS Management Console. Now, soon we are going to deal with one question, that is, what are different interfaces to interact with AWS services? But before that, let's quickly do a sign in, and then we are going to talk about AWS users. So I'm clicking on sign in to the console, and you will be navigated to a window where you have to enter your credentials. Now here in this window, you are getting an option to IAM user sign in or sign in using root user email. Okay. So I'm choosing an option sign in using root user email. So if somebody asks you what is the first user which gets created when you create an AWS account, the simple and straightforward answer to this question is root user. Okay. Now, who is a root user? That can be the another question which you have to understand. So I have seen that people usually gets confused and they say root user is the administrator or admin user. Okay. If you are also thinking in the same direction, let me correct you. So root user, first of all, is not the administrator or admin user. It is more than that. You can call root user as a super user, which is unrestricted user. Means you can't restrict a root user. But obviously, you can protect the root user. When I'm talking about protecting the root user, what do you mean by that? So two pointers remember about root user or two keywords on the basis of which I'm going to plan my discussion. First is restriction, another is protection. Okay, so restriction comes up with permissions. So when I'm saying that root user can't be restricted or root user is unrestricted, it means you can't control the permissions root user is having, or you can't restrict the permissions root user is having. So root user can do anything in the AWS account. And keeping in mind such criticality, the one point which we have to understand, we need to protect root user. Now, protecting from what? So basically, whenever you are creating an AWS account, you provide your email ID and password as a set of credentials. Now, this email ID and password is used as a credential for root user. So AWS always says that protect your root user by adding an additional layer of authentication. How to do it? Soon I'm going to talk about. Okay. But for the time being, you also have to understand the difference between protection and restriction. And I have explained it very clearly. Okay. So now quickly type the email ID. I'm doing that. It is the same email ID which you have to add. Like while you had created an AWS account, you must have provided it. Provide a password. Now my AWS account is already having MFA enabled. What is this MFA? So MFA stands for multi-factor authentication. This is an additional layer of authentication which you can add in order to protect your credentials. So I've already given you a hint. Like when it comes to protection, how can you protect your root user? You can protect by adding an additional layer of authentication. Means by any chance, or you can say that in worst case situation, if your credentials gets compromised, but if you have added this MFA or the additional layer of authentication, you are still protected, because till the time a user is not going to enter the MFA code, a user will not be able to take the control of AWS account. Okay, so let me open my app and I'm going to enter the MFA code. So allow me a minute. Okay, I've got it here. So let me type the MFA code and press enter. So based on the details I have provided, if my details are correct, I will be landing to the AWS login page. Okay, this is the landing page, or you can also call it as AWS console home. So this would be the first page which you are going to get into when you are going to log into your AWS account. Now, basically, in this discussion, what exactly we are going to talk about? So I ask you a very simple question. The question was, which user was created when you had signed up for the AWS account? The answer is root user. Now, another question I will be bringing in front of you, that is, should you use root user for day-to-day work? So if you are thinking like me, then you are going in a right direction. The straightforward answer to this question is no. As per the industry standard or the best practices, root user should only be used for limited tasks or for limited functionalities which can only be performed by root user. It should not be used for a day-to-day work. But if you want to explore the AWS services in your personal account, you can make use of root user. But don't forget to follow the best practice like enabling multi-factor authentication for your root login. Now you would be thinking, how can we do it? Let me guide you. So for that, you have to expand the drop down from the top rightmost side where you can see your account name, and you have to go to security credentials. Now, security credentials is a navigation page where you can manage the security for your login. Okay, so here, like you can see, I already have the MFA enabled or MFA device assigned for my login window. If you are coming to this particular page for the first time, you will be seeing a warning at the top that MFA is not enabled. So you can enable it. So click on assign MFA device. Obviously, you can see here, use MFA to increase the security for your AWS environment. And each user can have a maximum of 8 MFA devices assigned. So I am assigning one more MFA device to my login window in order to show you how can you do it. So click on assign MFA device. Give a name. This is a label or a name you can give in order to identify your MFA device. For example, I'm giving a name like my second MFA device, something like this. Okay, or any name you can give of your choice. Now, there are many options by which you can enable MFA. Either you can make use of passkey or security key. Either you can make use of authenticator app, or you can make use of a hardware token. Now, I suggest to use Authenticator app, or even I use Authenticator app. Okay. So click on this Authenticator app and then you can click on next button. From here or from this particular window, if you have to get a list of all the compatible applications, click here. From this window also, you can see install a compatible application such as Google Authenticator, Duo Mobile, or many more. As I told you, from this link, you can get the list of all the applications. Like see here, based on Android or iOS you are using, you can install any of these applications. Okay. So once you are ready with any one of these applications, you have to scan the QR code from here. So let me do it for you. I am opening one of the app in my mobile and scanning the QR code. It's done. As soon as you will scan the QR code, your apps will start generating the code. Now you have to enter two consecutive codes, everybody. Two consecutive code means one after another. So let's say I'm typing the first code from my app. After doing this, I'll be waiting for some time. They have also given wait 30 seconds and enter a second code entry. So let me wait for the second code to be generated. And here I have. Click on add MFA. As soon as you're going to do it, MFA device would be assigned to your login window. And next time when you are going to log in, it is going to ask for the MFA code. Okay. Now, the best part about this Authenticator app, which I personally like, AWS anyhow provide you an option if by any chance you lost your MFA device. Okay. So better for the safer side, either you can set up two MFA device, one on your mobile, one on your laptop, okay? Or you can set one MFA device and later, if anything would happen, you can troubleshoot it. So now let's move towards our another discussion. That is about users. So we have created a root user or which gets automatically created at the time of sign up for an AWS account. Now for the practice purpose, let's see how can we create another user in our account and how can we restrict a user in our account. So there comes a service, or you can call it as a foundation for the AWS security named IAM. You can see this keyword at most of the places, like this keyword is here. Identity and access management is a full form. Even when I had opened multi-factor authentication documentation, you can see it is something related to IAM. Now, as the name is suggesting, identity and access management. And as I told you, it is a foundation of security in the AWS. So using this feature or this service, we manage the identity and access. Means we deal with authentication and authorization, validating the identity and validating the access. Now, both the keywords have their own significance here. Like the first keywords which says identity, that is going to give the set of credentials, or that is going to give you an identity in order to sign into the AWS. Access is basically very important because without access, an entity can't perform any action in the AWS. Okay. So now, without any further delay, let's create our first IAM user in the AWS account. So whenever you have to explore, whenever you have to navigate to any particular service, simply type the name of the service in the search bar, like I'm doing. I'm typing IAM here and I will be navigated to IAM dashboard. Okay. Now IAM comes up with many features, but what is a feature we are going to explore. We will majorly be talking about IAM user and IAM policies. Okay. So from the left hand side, we can see all these options are available. Let's click on users and we are going to create a user. Okay. So while creating a user, click on create user button and you can see a section where you can add the user details. Now, username is a name of user which you have to pass at the time of sign in via IAM user. Okay, so any name of your choice you can give. Let's say I'm giving a name demo new user, something like this. Okay, or demo first user. It's your choice. Now, till the time we have an idea about this management console, means if I would be asking you a question like how can you interact with AWS services? So as we have discussed about management console, you would be having this picture in your mind that you can log into the management console and then you can start exploring AWS services. Okay. You can also call management console as GUI or graphical user interface, anything. Like whatever you like, you can just call it as a graphical user interface or web-based interface, everybody. Okay. So the checkbox is asking me provide user access to the AWS management console. So in this particular discussion, we will be creating a user and try to access this user via management console. So select this checkbox and then it is asking you for few things. Okay. So AWS will keep on giving you some recommendations as a part of the best practice. Okay. Like here we have one recommendation, specify a user in the identity center. Now, what do you mean by identity center? You can say that identity center is used to centrally manage the user access, okay, to their account and cloud application. But for the time being, let me create an IAM user. So I will be saying, I want to create an IAM user. Select this radio button and then again, it is asking you to set the password. So if you want to use this auto-generated password, AWS will be generating a password for you. Otherwise, you can choose a custom password option like I'm doing here. So I'm choosing a custom password and let me provide a password here. I'm doing it. Okay. Then comes another checkbox which says that user must create a new password at next sign-in. So this is a kind of permission you are applying to this user so that when user will be signing into the AWS account for the first time using these set of credentials, it will be asking user to reset the password. I don't want that because anyhow I have provided my custom password. So I'm okay with it. So for the time being, I am unchecking this checkbox. Go to next button. Here comes another important part called set permissions. So right now for this particular demo, I will not be setting any permission to this user because I want to prove the significance of both the keywords as I was talking to you, authentication and authorization. So till the time you have provided the authentication to this user like user credentials. But I'm telling that I don't want to provide any permissions to this user. So let's leave the screen as it is. And you can simply say next. Now this is a review page from where you can review whatever details you have provided, and if you want to add it, you can do that by navigating to a specific section, or you can also click on previous button. So if you are sure, if you are okay about all the details you have added here, click on create user. Okay, and wait for the user created window to be appeared. So here in this window, it is giving you a sign in URL. It is giving you a username. It is giving you a password. So it's your choice. Either you can make a note of it. Either you can follow the email sign in instructions, or either you can download a CSV file. Okay. Or otherwise, if you don't want to do anything, you can say return to user list. Now, a user is created. What is the next step? Let's log in or let's connect via this user to our AWS account and let's see what is the difference. So point is, one more thing which I want to make you clear. Few people think about that when I'm saying that I'm going to sign in as an IAM user. It does not mean that you're going to sign in as an IAM user to different AWS account. Account would be same. Only the users would be different. So currently I am logged in as a root user. So I have permission to everything in this account. Okay. But in order to show you how can you restrict the permissions or how can you follow the principle of least privileges, one very common standard which AWS is having, and even we follow it in day-to-day practice. Okay, sometimes if you are a part of the IT industry, you will be hearing a word called SOD or segregation of duties. It is same as principle of least privileges. Okay, so now let's quickly do a login via this IAM user. So you can open another browser, or you can say that you can open a new window in the incognito mode. So let me do it. I am opening a new window, and one thing, either you can type here AWS Management Console login, go to the first page where it is going to ask you the sign in details, click on sign into console, and then wait for the page to be appeared where you have to enter the details. Okay, so last time when I was doing a login, I had shown you we have two type of login windows here. One is IAM user sign in, another was sign in using root user email. So earlier we had signed in using root user email, but this time as you have created an IAM user, so you have to sign in as an IAM user. Okay, but one important thing which all of you have to remember, you need to provide an account ID. This account ID is the identification that from which account this user belongs to. So go back to your previous window and you can take an account ID from here. This is an account ID. Also, for your knowledge, you can create an account alias, which is an alternate name to your account. So here you can use an ID or alias. So let me type the account ID. Now, before I'm going to type a username and password, just now all of you had seen that I was manually typing the account ID. Okay. But what about if I have a question in my mind that why to type an account ID manually? Do we have any URL which is going to pre-fill this account ID? So if you are also having this question, then let me answer. Okay. The answer to this question is, can you see? We have this console sign in URL. Let's copy this and let's see the significance of this. Okay. So if I am typing it here and if I'm waiting for the login page to be appeared, you will see this account ID is pre-filled. Now you would be thinking that from where it is taking this name. I told you for your account, you can create an alias or the alternate name. How? For the first time, if you're coming to this page of IAM, you can go to dashboard or you will be landing to dashboard. Okay. In this dashboard, on the right hand side, you can see we have an account alias. So for the first time, this account alias will not be here. Let me show you. If I'm deleting it, it will appear like this. Create. Okay. So click on create and provide the alias, but it should be unique. Say create alias. So now you can see they have given me a sign in URL, which is a URL you can use in order to sign in as an IAM user. It will be same for all the IAM users in your account. So the purpose of this URL is to pre-fill the account ID. Okay. Now quickly go to the user you had created. Let me search the one I had created today. This is the one. Okay. So let me take it and paste it here. Let me see if I have any additional space. Let me remove it and let me provide the password. Okay. After providing a password, if it is saying authentication failed, let's recheck your password. And if you forgot it, you can set it from here. Let's say I'm going to security credentials and I'm managing the console access. I want to reset a password, for example. Okay, let me reset it. So if you forgot, this is how you have to reset a password. Okay. Now see, I have two windows open. One is this root user login. Another is this IAM user login. And I am performing all my actions right now in the root user login window, like creating user, resetting password, navigating to dashboard. Okay. Let's come back and provide a password here. Sign in. Okay. So you will be signed into your AWS account, but this time via IAM user. How can you verify? Expand it and match the account ID. So it's not a different account. It's the same account with different login. So in this particular window, I have logged in as a root user. Here, I have logged in as a demo new user, the IAM user you had created. Okay. Now see the important part, everybody. I had not provided any permission to this particular user. So now you can see this user will not be able to do anything. Let's say, let's go to IAM and see if this user can perform any action in the IAM console. And soon you will be seeing everywhere access denied. Why so? Because this user is not having any permissions assigned or any policy assigned, which proves that both authentication and authorization are important. So you needed to take care about both authentication and authorization in IAM. Okay. Let me quickly add some permission to this user. How to do it? Let me guide you. Go to permissions and click on add permissions. Okay. Now for the time being, just understand you can click on add permissions from here. Okay. So see, actually, how can you add a permission to a user? There are many ways, or there are three radio buttons you can see. The first one says that add user to a group. What do you mean by it? So group is a collection of multiple users. A simple example, a group of developers who want a common access. So instead of managing the access at the individual developer level, you can create a group of developers. You can add all the developers in a group and then assign the common permission at group level. So all the developers inside that group will inherit a permission. Second radio button says that copy permission. Means sometimes there can be a possibility that you want to copy a permission from an existing user, or you want to provide a same permission to this newly created user, the one an existing user is having. So you can also use this particular radio button. And finally comes attach policies directly. So policy is a very big topic. For the time being, just understand policy basically talks about managing the access for an entity in AWS. Okay. If I have to give you a technical definition, I can say that policy is a set of instructions which defines what actions can be performed by an entity in the AWS account. Okay. It's a template, JSON based template where you are going to write the set of instructions. Okay. Now, one classification of policy is managed policy, means it can be managed by AWS or it can be managed by a customer. Okay. If you want to get into further classification, let me guide you very quickly. So let me open a tool where I am going to draw a diagram for you. So let's say starting with IAM policy very quickly. If I'm typing here, this is a policy. Okay. Now I'm doing major classification of this policy. And what are that? I'm writing it like this. The first classification is identity based policy and resource based policy. Okay. Identity based policy means which will be attached to an identity. And resource based policy means which will be attached to the AWS resources or AWS services. Okay. Now further classification of identity based policy, if I have to do, that is managed policy and inline policy. Okay. You can understand like this. Managed means which is generic, which is global. Okay, means once you are creating a policy, you can attach it to any entity. Inline means specific to an entity. A simple example which I always give to my students, let's say you are a part of a team. And right now, all your team members are working on a project and they need common permissions. Okay. So you have created one policy and using that policy, you're managing the common permission for your team members. But let's suppose one of you has got a promotion and you have got some extra level of responsibilities for which you need a specific permission. But at the same point of time, I want to ensure that that specific permission should only be visible to you. So inline policy will come into picture there. Okay. Manage policy has further classification. And what are those? We have AWS managed policy. We have customer managed policy. So as the name is suggesting, AWS managed policy means which is managed by AWS, and customer managed means which is managed by customer. Okay. Now if somebody is going to ask you, can you as a customer added the AWS managed policy? The answer would be no, you can't. Okay. So this was a very quick classification of the policy in the IAM. Okay. In our demo, what we are going to talk about, okay, we are going to talk about managed policy, or we will be using a managed policy. Now from here, you can understand where the managed policy comes, or in which category managed policy comes. You can also add the arrows if you want. Okay, this will give you a hierarchy. And it will also give you a better classification. Let me do that very quickly. Okay, let me add one more arrow. Okay, and that completes my hierarchy. So from here, you can get a classification. So in my demo, I am attaching the AWS managed policy. You can see from the type, or you can see from this icon. For example, let's say I'm giving IAM read only access. Let me select it, go to next and say add permissions. As soon as I will do it and come back, let me refresh this particular dashboard. And let's see if this user will be able to perform read operations in the IAM. Let's see here. Go to users, and you can see, now you can see the users or view the users. But if you will try to create a user, for example, let's try to do it. Demo user 2. Okay. Let's quickly fill the details. Let me do it. And I am directly going to review and create. Go to next and say create user. So error is expected. Access denied to IAM create user. You don't have a permission to IAM create user. So this proves that you can only perform those many actions which you are having access to, or based on the permission or based on the set of actions granted to you, you will be able to perform the actions. Okay. So point is, you can create an IAM users. You can restrict the IAM users in your AWS account. So one way in order to limit the permissions or follow the principle of least privileges means only grant that much access which is actually required. So if you are ready with your first IAM user and you have also tested the permission of that IAM user, let's move forward for our next discussion. That is, what are different ways to interact with AWS services? Till the time, if I would be asking you this question, I will be getting an answer called AWS Management Console. And you all are correct, because this is something we have explored till now. So let me search for AWS Management Console. Any of these icons you can make use of. So if somebody asks you, you can call it as a web-based interface or a graphical user interface. Okay. So using this interface, you can interact with AWS service. But what about other interfaces? Now, there could be different job roles in the IT industry. Means few people can be an administrator, or few people would be having a developer profile. So do we have any such options other than management console which can help us out to interact with AWS services? And the answer to this question is yes, we have. And what are those? We have CLI, which is a command line interface, as the name is suggesting. And if you are a programmer, you don't have to worry about because we have something for you too. And what is that? We have SDK, Software Development Kit. As a name is suggesting, in the name itself, there is a term called software, okay, which is saying that it is for developers. And at the same point of time, it provides support for different programming languages. Okay, you can see here. Now, other than this, if you are going to explore the AWS documentation, sometimes you will be seeing a keyword called API. What do you mean by API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. So either you can directly call AWS APIs, or even all these options which AWS is providing to you, that is APIs only. At certain point of time, you have a wrapper. You are using that wrapper in order to interact with AWS services. So in our past discussion, we had explored web-based interface or management console. So now it's a time to talk about command line interface. So as the name is suggesting, here we are going to execute the commands. But actually, where we are going to execute the command, okay, that thing we have to understand, means how can you set up CLI? Many ways to set up CLI, and today we are going to talk about two such ways. Okay, one way is available as a part of the management console itself. If all of you will be seeing, there is an icon at the top called CloudShell. So this CloudShell gives you a command line interface only. Click on this. If you want, you can also open that in new tab. Okay. Now, few things about CloudShell which you have to keep in your mind. That is, CloudShell is giving you a command line interface, and CloudShell is going to use the same logged in credentials with which you have signed into your AWS account. For example, in this particular window, I have logged in as a root user. So this CloudShell will also be taking a root credential. And now, as you know already, that root user can do anything in the AWS. So you can also perform any action using this CloudShell. Let me show you. Let's say if I want to list down the IAM users in my account, let me do it. So I'm typing a command AWS IAM list users, and let me press enter. Let's see if I'm going to get some result. And you can see that I'm going to get a result. You can keep on pressing enter in order to get more users present in your account. Now the idea is, some of you would be thinking that do we have to learn or memorize all these commands? I have an answer. It will come by practice, but to start with, there are few tricks which you can keep in your mind. Like every command in the AWS will be started with a keyword called AWS. After that, you have to type a name of the service. Let's say I am executing the commands for IAM or on IAM service. So I will be typing a name of service as IAM. Then again, you have to type the name of the operation you want to perform. Let's say I want to perform an operation called list user. So I will be typing list users. And finally, if there are some arguments, you can type that. Okay. So keep these rules in your mind and you will be able to type the commands very easily. Also, if you are starting with the CLI, what you can do, type on internet, let's say AWS IAM CLI reference, something like this. And you will be navigating to IAM command reference documentation. Click this. And from here, you can see all the available commands. Okay, so let's say I'm searching for list users. Let me search. Okay, and click on this list users. So from here also you can see the example. How can you execute the command? So there are many ways. It's up to you, like how you want to continue with the commands. But commands you can use in order to interact with AWS services. Now, before I'm going to take you all to the another way of setting up CLI in your local machine, let me show you something. Do you remember we had created one IAM user in our last discussion? So let me quickly do a sign in to that user again. Okay, so you know, either you can use the sign in URL, it's up to you, or either you can pre-fill the account ID. Okay. So either you can have the sign in URL with pre-filled account ID, or you can type the account ID manually. Let me use a sign in URL. So I will be navigating to dashboard, and let me use this common URL here. Let me type it and press enter. So you will be seeing that account ID will be pre-filled. Give the username and then password. Okay. Why I'm doing this? Because I want to show you that you had provided this user only access to read IAM, for IAM read access, anything you can say. Okay. If you will try to open CloudShell here, let's see what happens. So ideally, you should not be able to access the CloudShell. Let's have a look. You can see unable to create the environment. This may be due to insufficient permission to create the environment. Okay, what we can do? Let me add a permission here. For example, I'm navigating to this user and let me try to add a permission. So for the time being, I'm again adding the AWS manage policy. So go to attach policies directly and here type the policy. Let's say I'm giving the CloudShell full access to this user. Go to next and finally click on add permissions. Now again see the access. Refresh this browser and right now you will be able to create the environment. Okay, so you can see that how can you control and manage the access. Now do the same thing which we had done in our past demo, testing the access via this IAM user. So for example, right now this user has a read IAM access. So I will be typing AWS IAM list users. Let's see what happens. I should be able to list the users. You can see here. Okay. Let me, yeah. So you can keep on pressing enter in this CloudShell and you will be seeing a list of users. If you have to come out of the existing command output, press Q. Q for quit. Okay. Now let's say I want to create a user because I also want to understand the similar kind of error you were getting in the console, the same error you should get here. Okay. So let me guide you this time. Let's say we are going to our IAM reference documentation. Okay. And this time I'm searching for a command called create user. Okay. Let's go back one more time to all the commands. So say create user, something like this. Okay, open this and you can see the example. This is example by which you can create a user. Okay. Now, if you want to copy this, you can. Otherwise, what you can do, you can type it in this way. Let's type together. Every command start with AWS as a keyword. After that, provide a name of the service, then name of the operation, and then argument. Okay, so let's say I'm creating a user, demo user CLI or CloudShell, anything. Okay, you can verify the command. This is the same command I'm typing here and press enter. Let's see the result. Can you see? It is saying an error occurred, access denied. So the same thing you were doing using management console, you can do it from here too. Okay. So one way to interact with AWS services using command is CloudShell. But you have to ensure whatever user you are using, that user should be having the access to CloudShell. Okay. Now, few people prefer to do the things in their local machine. So how can you set up a CLI in your local machine? For that, type on internet like this. Let's say install CLI AWS like this. It will be taking you to the installing or updating the latest version of the AWS CLI. Okay. And here you can see based on the operating system you have in your local, you can follow the instructions. So let's suppose I have a Windows. So I'm going to follow the instructions which have been given to me for Windows. Okay. So what I have to do, it is saying that follow these instructions, download and run the AWS CLI installer for Windows 64-bit. Alternatively, if you want to execute the commands, you can do it. So first thing, let me open the command prompt and let me give a check. Do I have AWS CLI installed or not? And I am getting an error. AWS is not recognized as an internal or external command. So what's next? Either you can execute these commands or otherwise you can download it. Okay. So it's up to you. You can download from here or you can execute these commands. Download and follow the instructions. Okay. You can see for various parameters that can be used. For example, you can use this particular parameter for a silent installation. Okay. So let me use this command and let me type this command here in my terminal. Press enter. You can see this is how you can also install. It's up to you. So either download it from the browser and then open the installer and follow the instructions. Or you can download from here, from this command. So let's wait for the installation to be completed. Let me say yes. And once the installation would be completed, again, we are going to see the version of AWS using a command AWS space -- version. We'll be waiting for a couple of minutes or even less than that. It's taking some time. In the meantime, let me talk about something. So see, if I would be asking you another question, because I believe in the interactive discussions, and interactive discussions comes into picture when we keep on interacting by the way of question and answers. Okay. So till the time you have explored a set of credentials called email ID and password, username and password. Okay. Also, we have talked about another credential called MFA, multi-factor authentication. So email ID and password is used by root user to sign into the AWS account. Username and password is used by IAM user to sign into the AWS account. But what about if I have to interact with CLI using my local setup? Okay, because in the AWS management console, when you were using a CloudShell, you did not had to authenticate yourself. It was using the same credential with which you had logged in, as it is built in the management console. But what about a local setup? In local, you need to configure the credentials. And how can we do it? Or what type of credential is available? There comes into picture the concept of access keys. So soon we are going to create the access keys from our AWS account, and then we are going to configure the access keys as a part of the CLI. Okay, so that you can interact with AWS services. Let's finish and try to check if you can get the AWS version now. Okay, it is still giving you AWS is not recognized as an internal or external command. Don't worry. It's not an issue with our installation. It's the issue with the current session of the CMD. So better open another session. And here type AWS space -- version and wait for the result. Can you see? You are getting the output. If you're getting the output, it means the CLI is running in your account. Okay. You can close this one and you can keep this open. Even if you'll go back, you can see this is how you have to check if CLI is installed or not. What is the next step as a part of this discussion? Let's quickly configure the user we had created. How? So I will be navigating to IAM, because currently if I will try to do anything, let's say if I'm going to try a command like this. Okay, it will be giving me an error soon. What is an error? Let's see that. It will be asking me, okay, to configure the credential. But there can be a possibility as I am getting a result, it means credentials are already configured in my local CLI and I can prove that. So quickly, let me do one thing. Yes. So by default, if the credentials are already configured, you can see a folder in a directory. See users, username. Inside a username, there will be a .aws directory. And I can see this directory. Okay, so what I can do, let me remove it from here. Okay. And now let me give a try again. If you have to come out of this, you can press Ctrl C. Okay. So let's say I'm giving a try. You can use the up arrow key if you don't want to type the command again. And this time, let's wait for the response. Can you see? It is giving me an error unable to locate credentials. So in my case, I had the credentials configured already. But this time, let's configure the credentials from scratch. How? There is a command to do that called AWS space configure. But before that, we needed to create the credentials. So let's go to user, the one which we had created. Let's search for the user here in the search bar. And then go to security credentials. In this particular section, go to access keys and say create access keys. So here is a use case you can make use of, like for which purpose you're going to create access key. As I told you earlier, also AWS will generate a recommendations for you as a best practice. So let's say I'm choosing local code. Let me provide a confirmation and let me go to next. This is a tag or a label you can give. I'm not giving it right now. Secret access key. Okay. So one thing you have to remember, these access keys are like your username and password. So you have to keep it protected. Don't share it with anyone. For my demo purpose, as I have given limited permission, I am going to show this access key and secret key to you. But later I will also tell you a trick how can you deactivate it. So type a command here saying AWS configure. The first thing it will be asking to all of you, that would be the access key. Copy it. It will be asking for the secret key. It will be asking for a default region. So let's say I'm configuring Mumbai. And finally, the output format. In which format you want to get the output. Let's say this is a JSON format. So now, if I'm going to execute the same command, I know this user is having a list permission. Let's see if I'm going to get the users available in my account. So I'm waiting for the response from this command and you can keep on pressing enter. Okay, let's test one more access which we had tested in the CloudShell. Okay, what was that? AWS IAM create user, username, and then you can give a username. Let's say demo local CLI user, something like this, and press enter. So you should be getting the same error which we had got in the CloudShell. You can see access denied. So idea is here I have shown you two ways, like how can you set up CLI and how you can interact with the AWS services using CLI. Okay, so last part in this discussion is how to deactivate these keys. Say done. It will be giving you a pop-up. You haven't viewed or downloaded your secret key. If you continue, you can't retrieve it in the future. That's fine. Let's say continue because we already have an option to generate a new one. Now for the security region, what I will be doing, let me deactivate it. So I'll go to action, deactivate. Okay. So now nobody can misuse these keys. If you want to delete it, follow the instructions, delete it. But I'm not doing it right now. Okay. So a quick recap of what we had covered. We had created an IAM user and then we had seen how can we interact via that user using management console and CLI. And a CLI setup we had seen in our local machine, as well as we had also got an idea in order to explore CloudShell. Okay. So this was with respect to interacting with AWS services using CloudShell. Soon, I'm going to come back with a very important concept, that is how can you create a billing alert in your AWS account so that you can make yourself protected from any additional charges or from any unintended charges in your AWS account. Okay, so till now, what we have learned, we have got an understanding on how to set up and activate an AWS account. We got an idea about multi-factor authentication in order to add an additional layer of security. We got an understanding on how to create an IAM user other than root user and how to restrict the permissions using IAM policies. And finally, we had explored different ways for interacting with AWS services. We had seen how to do a CLI setup in your local machine or how to make use of CloudShell. So what's next? So if you are having a fear in your mind, are we going to get any additional charges in the AWS account? Okay. So the answer to this is, if you are going to use your AWS resources smartly, within a limit, based on the free tier uses and the limit, you will not be getting charged anything extra in your account. But to be at a safer side, we are going to understand how can we set up the alerts or how can we create the budgets in the AWS account. Now there are different ways. Like if you have to set some billing alert, you can create the alarms. But what I'm going to help you out with, I'm going to show you like how can you create a budget in the AWS account using which you will be alerted if the billing is going to be breached beyond a specific limit, or if you are going to get a breach against a threshold, you will be alerted by the email. So for that, expand your account name present on the right hand side topmost and go to billing and cost management. In the billing and cost management, on the left hand side, you are going to see many features which are available here, and these features are really useful. But what we will be exploring as a part of our demo, we are going to explore Cost Explorer, which comes under Cost and Usage Analysis section, or we are going to talk about budgets, like which comes under Budget and Planning. So let's start with budgets first, and then we are going to move towards Cost Explorer. So click on this budgets, and we are going to create a budget in the AWS account. So for you, if you are coming here to this page for the first time, I will be teaching you how to create a budget. Now you can see I already have a couple of budgets in my account. Let me create one more. So click on create budget. And you can see we have two radio buttons. The first one is user template. The second one is customize. User template means you are going to use a recommended configurations. Means you can change some configuration options after the budget is created. In case of customize, you can set the parameters specific to your use case. These are the templates if you want to explore, which comes under this particular view. But what I will be doing, I will be creating a custom budget as per my use case, as per my need. So click on customize, and then again you have different budget types. I will be choosing cost budget as a part of this particular demo and click on next button. So you can see we have different pointers here, like how to set up your budget. You can start with enter your budget details. You can set the budget amount, and then you have to scope your budget, which is optional step. On the right hand side, you can see a budget preview section, which is showing your cost data. In my case, it is showing me a cost data from October 2024 to October 2025. If you have recently created your account, for you, there could be a possibility this view is not possible or this view will not be available. I can say that. Okay. Other thing which you have to keep in your mind, like whenever you will be having some service credits in your account, it will be showing you a bill like minus $0 or something like this. Okay. So let me scroll down and I'm going to start with the budget name. Let me provide a budget name. Let's say I'm giving a budget name as custom budget. Okay. After that, you have to set a budget amount. So in the budget amount window, the first section is you have to select a period. For example, I'm selecting daily. Okay. Then you have to specify the budget renewal type. Like, do you want to create a recurring budget or do you want to create an expiring budget? I always recommend or I always suggest to create a recurring budget. You can give a start date. Budgeting method would be fixed. And here you can see the point I was talking about, that as I have service credits in my account, so it is showing me last 30-day daily average is minus $0. Okay. So for example, I'm setting a budget amount here, which is very minimal. Let's say 0.01 or 0.1. Anything you can set. It's your choice. Okay. In the budget scope, you have to keep all AWS services, which is a recommended option. Click on next button, and here you are going to set the alert. So you have the budgeted amount which you had set in the previous screen, and I'm going to add an alert threshold. Like I'm saying, if the amount would be crossing 10% of my budgeted amount, the alert be triggered. So see here, when your actual cost is greater than 10%, which is almost $0 of your budgeted amount, the alert threshold will be exceeded. Okay. And here you have to provide the email. So for the demo purpose, I'm providing the temporary email or dummy email. But you have to remember, when you are going to provide an email ID, you have to provide the actual email ID which is active and where you can accept the emails. Okay. Scroll down, again click on next button, and then you can have a review page where you can review what all details you have entered in terms of budget type, in terms of setting up your budget, if you had set any additional parameters that you can see, and also the configure alert. Click on create budget and wait for the budget to be created. So this is something I have created. Currently it is showing me okay or healthy. But if something would be wrong, how you are going to get the email in your mailbox? So for the demo purpose, I have opened one of my email in my mailbox where I'm getting that a budget has exceeded your alert threshold. And it is showing me I had kept the alert threshold when the amount would be crossing the $0 and actual amount was $3.43. So idea is you will be alerted using this budget. Also, as I told you, one very important part of creating a budget is set the option as daily so that you will be alerted on a daily basis if something is wrong and you can take the actions immediately in your AWS account. Okay. Now, this was a precautionary measure or this was a best practice which everybody should follow in order to be alerted. What's next, everyone? After you got this particular email in your account, you can go to the AWS budget dashboard. Let's say I'm clicking on AWS budget dashboard from the email link, and I will be redirected to the AWS budget page. Okay. So what this particular section or what this particular page is going to show you, let's quickly review it. Okay. And if we find that we have a need to explore more to understand where the services are running, in which particular location I'm getting the charges, all these things, how can I do? So it has redirected me to the budget page. But from here, I'm not getting much information. I can only get the information in terms of how much amount got generated in the form of a bill in my account. Okay. So now let's go to Cost Explorer in order to talk about my second scenario where when somebody has got an email, now they have a need to understand what action they have to take or what all services are running in their account. So click on Cost Explorer, everybody. If you are coming to this page for the first time, there is a high possibility that it can take some time in order to make this page active for you. Okay. So usually like 24 hours is a window, but yeah, it can be lesser than that. It can be couple of hours or even 1 hour. Okay. So basically use this Cost Explorer in order to troubleshoot what is wrong. So first thing here, you can select a date range. Let's suppose I'm selecting a date range for the current month. Let me do that. Okay. Let's say from October 1st till October 4th. Okay, and you can apply these changes. Okay, so from first to fourth, it is asking me granularity. I can say daily. Okay, if you want to get hourly, you can say hourly. Okay, then you can set a dimension. Let's say if you want to apply the filter on the basis of services, choose services. Okay, why it is giving you a forecasting thing? Because you are trying to get the comparison report for this particular date range. Okay, so scroll down, and right now you can see that it is showing me minus $0. Why? Because I have some service credits. But then how I will be able to see the actual cost? How I will be able to identify what resources are generating charges in my account. So see, what you have to do when you will scroll down, click on more filters. Under charge type, you have to select uses. When I'm going to do that, I'm going to apply the changes. You can see it is showing me total cost is $7.89 for this particular month. Okay. And if you want to review, you can review based on which services are generating charges. For example, for today, these are the charges which is associated with different services in my account. Okay. So from here, you got an idea that what all services are generating charges in your account. Okay. If you still need any assistance, if you still want to understand in which particular geographical location or in which particular region, so there you can set a dimension instead of service as a region. Okay. And then you are going to get the location details or region details from here too. Okay. If still you are stuck, if still you need assistance, then there comes an option to create a ticket to the AWS. How? Let me take you to my console home. And when we are going to navigate to the console home, we are going to see the support option. You can see a question mark at the top. Okay, click on this. It is a support option. So go to support center. So this is an option you can use when you want some assistance from the AWS support team. If you are not having any clarity with respect to charges, with respect to account, you can raise a ticket. Now, as a part of a basic support plan, here you can see we are enrolled under basic support plan. When you are going to click on create case, you will only be getting an option for account and billing for support purpose. Okay, here you can see support for service related technical issues, but this particular option is not available under basic support plan. Let's try. You can see expert technical assistance when you need it the most. You need it to basically upgrade your plan to the business support trial or business support plan, which we're not going to do because our query, let's suppose for the time being, is related to account and billing. So here, let's say I'm choosing account. Under category, let's say I'm choosing other account issues, and then severity is general question. Go to additional information. Let's say you want to get an idea, able to, or anything, any subject you can type. Let's say need information about services running in the AWS account, something like this. Okay, same info if you want, you can pass in a description. Okay, let me just take it again, pass it here, and say solve now or contact us. Now, solve now will give you certain personalized recommendations which you can make use of it. And finally, under contact us, you have three options. What I personally prefer a chat option. So using this chat option, a representative will be coming online for you and you can have your queries to that representative. Okay. So chat option is the best option. Like if you are not getting chat option based on your selection, change your selection and again choose a chat option. Okay. Because you're going to get immediate response. You don't have to wait for a service window. Okay. So I'm not going to submit this particular option. My goal was just to tell you like how can you create a budgets? How can you create the billing alert? Okay. How can you explore the charges in your account to understand what services are generating charges? And finally, at the end, if you need more support from the AWS, this is how you can create an AWS ticket. Okay. Now, going forward, we will be talking about how can we interact with the AWS services using SDK, Software Development Kit. And there we are going to use Python Notebook. So quickly complete whatever we have done in the form of demo till here. And I'm going to discuss on the upcoming part, as I told you, right away. Okay, so now let's move towards our next part of discussion where we are going to upload a data set to S3, access it from the local Jupyter notebook. So basically, before you are going to start with this particular hands-on exercise, you have to understand what are the prerequisites required. So I've listed down here. Like the first one would be an AWS account. So all of you are having an active AWS account, the same account which we have used as a part of our all previous discussion. Then you will be needing an S3 bucket. We are going to talk about S3 bucket soon. Okay. I have just given you an example that while you are going to create a bucket, you can take a name like this. We will be needing Python 3.8 plus. We will be needing AWS CLI, and we have to check about Jupyter Notebook. Now, first of all, ensure how many prerequisites you meet or how many things are already there with you. So, according to my knowledge, based on the discussion which all of us have made, all of you have an AWS account. S3 bucket we are going to create soon. Okay. If you don't have Python, then install Python in your local machine. CLI we have installed. And again, once the Python would be installed, Jupyter Notebook would be there. Okay. So if I'm going to open my command prompt and let me check the first thing, that is Python version. Let's see what I'm going to get. So I already have Python installed on my local machine, which is Python 3.11.9. Okay. So you can do the installation, browse on internet and see how to install Python. Okay. Now coming back to my point where I have to explain you all about S3, what S3 is. I am going to take you all to the AWS Management Console. To start with this, again, I will come back to my same definition. What is data? Data is the collection of discrete values or raw elements which will be converted into information when ready to give you business insight or when you can derive business decisions from the data. Now, the point is here, data is an important pillar for any data scientist. You are going to deal with data time to time on a regular basis in order to make your work done. But where to store data? Because data is not going to be like 1 MB, 2 MB. It will be in petabytes, exabytes, or more than that. Okay. So data is a very critical aspect for any organization, remember. Means we need a storage in order to store the data. And at the same point of time, as I have already given you an idea in my definition that data is a collection of discrete values. It means here data can come in any format. Data can come from any source. So again, we are talking about a single source of truth here, where we can store data in any format, in native format, in a raw format, anything you can say. And there comes S3 in picture. So S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. Okay. So one way to understand about S3 is type S3 in the search bar and you will be navigated to S3 dashboard. Let's see. So quickly, if you have to read about S3, just see it from here. Store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere. So S3 is an object storage service that offers industry leading scalability, data availability, security, and performance. And more you can read from here if you want. In terms of benefits and features, in terms of use cases, in terms of case studies, and what are the related services. Okay. Now, if somebody is going to ask me that what S3 is, I will be defining that in one more simple definition. S3 provides you a cost-effective storage option where you can store unlimited amount of data. Now, before I am going to take you all towards my demo where I am going to set up a local Jupyter notebook and then I am going to follow the instructions. Let me talk about little bit on few important concepts in S3. Okay. So see, every service has an identifier. Means you are going to identify a service by an identifier. So in case of S3, if I have to talk about, I can say bucket is an identifier. Okay, this is a bucket. Now S3 is represented by a symbol called bucket, and we always say that we are going to create a bucket in S3. Okay, now this bucket in a technical term is also known as container. Container to store your data. Don't get confused, everybody. Container and containerization is also a technical concept in DevOps. It is different than that. It is just a synonym for bucket, everybody, like where we have to talk about storing a data. Now, what you store inside this bucket or how you store the data inside this bucket. So basically, we store the data in the bucket in form of object. If I'm going to take another example in front of you. We have a bucket. Inside this bucket, we have objects. So I can say here, for your knowledge, this one is your bucket. And the data which you can see inside this bucket are the objects, representing the objects. Okay. Now, few more important thing which you have to understand. Let's talk about little bit on the object side. So on the basis of this, S3 is known as object storage service, everybody. So if somebody asks you what type of storage service S3 is, it is an object storage service. Now, when we say object, means object is representing that you can store the data in any format. You can store the data in a native format or raw format. Okay. In whatever format you are getting the data, you can store it. Okay. So this is your object. Object has three important characteristics which all of you have to remember. And what are those? We identify an object via data. Okay? Metadata and key. Means these three concepts are related to the object. Now, what these three concepts are? A very simple example to understand this is, let's take a notepad file, okay, or a text file in a very simple language, or any file format you can take of your choice. Okay, so when I'm talking about the data is the actual content inside that file. For example, if I have couple of lines, okay, which is written in that text file, so data will be representing the content. Metadata is representing the info about data or data about data. Okay, let's say with respect to that particular file, metadata can be file name with respect to content type. In context of the file, metadata can be the content type. Metadata can be the size of the file, timestamp, date created, and many more such information. Key is the actual identifier. So for our case, when I'm talking about a text file, this key would be the object name or this key would be the name of the file. Okay. Obviously, when you are going to study more about S3, you will be getting an idea. If you are using some prefixes, then the object key will also include a prefix. So keep one thing in your mind that S3 in AWS act as a single source of truth for your data, or you can also call it as a data lake, a centralized repository where you can store the data in any format. Okay, now let's move back to the AWS dashboard. Now, obviously, to store the data, we need to create a bucket. There are many ways to create a bucket. We are going to explore it. Okay, so let me first of all, create a bucket using management console. Then we are going to create a bucket using CLI. Okay. So let's go to general purpose bucket. We have different bucket types in the S3, but we are going to talk about general purpose bucket. Click on create bucket, everybody, and give a name. Now, one thing you have to understand, basically, AWS has its presence globally in different locations around the world. Okay. So one thing, whenever you are going to create a bucket, you need to choose a location, a specific location where the bucket would be created. And for your understanding, like S3 is a serverless service. You don't have to manage the underlying infrastructure. It will be taken care by AWS for you. Means if somebody is going to ask you when you are storing the data, obviously that data would be stored somewhere in the background on the server. But here you are not managing the server. So for my demo, I'm choosing Asia Pacific Mumbai as the location, and I'm choosing a bucket type as general purpose bucket. Let me give a name. Now bucket namespace should be globally unique. When I am using a word globally unique, it means that this name should not exist anywhere, not only within your account. Let me show you. Let's say if I'm giving a name test and I'm clicking on create bucket, I'm getting an error message bucket with the same name already exists. Although if I'll go to buckets and if I will search for test here, there is no such bucket with a name test in my account. But this bucket would be existing somewhere, okay, in any of the AWS account. So when I'm using a word globally unique, it should be globally unique, okay? If you have a question in your mind, why globally unique? The simple answer to this question is related with the DNS. So bucket name or S3 bucket namespace is used as a DNS in the URLs. Okay. DNS means domain name system or domain name service, which provide an identity to a application. Okay. So let me click on create bucket. And if you are concerned about like how we are going to ensure that this name does not exist, there are some conventions you have to follow, or there are some patterns you can follow. For example, let's say I'm creating a bucket, my dataset bucket, and I am using a keyword called console. Means this bucket I'm creating from console. Another important factor for the practice purpose, which I always follow, let's say if I have to provide a unique namespace to my bucket, I always append the date at the end of the namespace. Let's say if I'm creating a bucket today, I will be appending today's date. Now, one very common question again comes to me that if we have to create more than one bucket within a day, what we have to do? In that case, append 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. Okay. That will make your bucket namespace unique. Also, like while you are going to give a bucket namespace, remember there are some conventions you have to follow. Means what are the valid characters or what are not the valid characters. You can always see here if you want to get a complete list of the conventions. General purpose bucket naming rules. Okay. So don't worry. I'm not asking you to learn everything in one go, but I am giving you a direction that if you are getting stuck somewhere or if you are getting an error, in which direction you have to think about and what are the steps you have to troubleshoot. Okay. So come back here. In the industry, there will always be some standards. There will always be some naming conventions which you have to follow. So this is only for your practice purpose. Like while you are exploring the AWS services, how can you make it possible? Okay. Rest all settings, I'm keeping default for the time being. And let me say create bucket. This bucket is created. Means you got a container where you are going to store the data or where you are going to store the object. Okay. Now, same thing could be done via command line. Okay, how? Let me show you. So for that, either you can make use of a CloudShell in your root login window, or you can make use of a CloudShell in a user login window, okay, where you have the relevant access to the user. So let's take the same user which we had created in our previous demos very quickly. So go to users and then search for the one which you had created. So this was the one which we had created. Currently, let's see the permission this user is having. Okay. So once we are going to evaluate the permission, we will be seeing whether this user is having a relevant permission or not. So to access, we had provided to this user CloudShell full access and I am read-only access. Okay. But right now I am talking about S3. So this user should be having the S3 access. How? Click on add permissions. And for the demo purpose, we can provide S3 full access. Okay. Obviously, if you are an administrator, okay, who is going to manage the identities and permissions, at that point of time, you have to create a custom policy with the restricted access. Okay. So click on next and add permission. Now, what you are thinking? If we have given the S3 full access, this user will be able to perform all the actions associated with S3. Let's see that. So open a command prompt. So I had shown you how to do a local setup of AWS CLI. Okay. First thing, verify do you have a CLI installed. Once you will verify that CLI is installed, by the output, you have to check if you have the credentials configured. Okay. So you have to ensure your access keys and secret keys are in active mode. Like last time, I had shown you how to deactivate it after using. Okay. So let's create a bucket using CLI. What's the command? I told you every command will be started with a keyword called AWS. Okay. Give a name S3. That's the name of a service. MB is an operation you are performing. It is basically for make bucket. Then provide the bucket name. So how to provide a bucket name? How can you give the bucket name? Let me help you out. Okay. So there's a syntax. For example, if I'm going here, let's say if I have to get into any bucket which is already present in my account. Okay. So what is the syntax, everybody? I'm guiding. The syntax is you have to provide S3 colon, then you have to provide forward slash. Okay. So S3 colon forward slash, and then you have to give a bucket name. So let's say I'm giving my dataset sample CLI bucket. Okay. Or local CLI bucket. Anything you can say here. Okay. If you are still not sure about the command you have to execute, you can always refer the command reference documentation. Okay. And here we have to provide double slash. Okay. Let's see it. How? Type it on internet S3 CLI reference. I shown you how to do it. Okay. Open the command reference documentation. Go to available commands. In the available commands, go to MB. MB is for make bucket. Here you can see the example. So this is the example. AWS S3 MB, S3 colon double forward slash and then bucket name. Okay. Let's see this. This is my bucket name, which I'm going to provide here. And press enter. If this user will be having a relevant access, the one which I have already configured, the bucket would be created. So you can see. Go back to your bucket and let's see if bucket is created or not. So you can search by the name you have created. Let's say I am going to search by the bucket name. You can always refresh once. One way is sort it on the basis of date creation. You can see this is a bucket we had created from the command line. Okay. So idea is you can create a bucket by different ways. So now the bucket is ready. What is the next step? Let's prepare our data. Okay. So if you want to prepare a data from the command line or from the terminal, you can create a simple data set like this. Okay. For example, I'm creating a simple data set like this. This is the name of my file where I'm appending the entries. Okay. Another way is if you don't want to go by this way, you can download a sample data set from the internet, or if you have your own data set, you can use that own data set. Okay. So for the demo purpose, what I'm doing, I'm quickly creating a directory in this particular parent folder. Okay. So let's say I'm giving a directory name S3 demo Jupyter. Okay. Change your directory. You can always use tab in order to get the suggestion. Okay. Now you are inside this directory. Simply use this command and paste it here. Okay. Press enter. You can see what is inside this directory. Now, obviously, if you are a Linux user, ls will not work here. If you have to see the content inside this directory, you have to use either Windows command, or you can move to this particular folder in order to see file is existing or not. Okay. Now file is present. I got a file in my local machine. You can see if the sample dataset exists by using this command. How? Like type and my sample data.csv. Again, you can use tab to autocomplete. So yes, this data set is existing inside this folder. Okay. Now, before you are going to fetch this data from the Jupyter notebook, you need to upload this data to your S3 bucket. Again, you have different ways in order to upload the data to the S3 bucket. Either you can do it from the management console by clicking on upload button, do a drag and drop. Either you can do it using command line. Either you can do it using Jupyter Notebook too. Okay. But remember one thing, like when you are performing something from your local machine, you need to configure the credentials like we had done yesterday called AWS configure. One way. Okay. Obviously, we have other secure ways too if you don't want to configure the credentials. But for the time being, just remember this. Okay. So here, what I have taken, first of all, I have taken like how you have to set up a local Jupyter notebook. Let's do it first, very quickly. So if I have to set up a local Jupyter notebook, simply type if you have the required packages installed or not. In my case, I have the required packages installed. If not, you can execute this command. Let me show you. So let me execute this command for all of you and press enter. Okay. So using a package manager, we are going to install all these packages, all these libraries. Okay. So let's wait for the installation to be completed. And now you can start a Jupyter notebook. Let's start a Jupyter notebook. Okay. So by typing this command, you are going to get a Jupyter notebook in your local machine started. Okay. Let's wait. It will be giving you the output. And you can see in the browser, I will be having a Jupyter notebook open. And it is also showing you this data set in my current local directory. Okay. Now, you know, if you are aware about Jupyter notebook, you can create a file, Python file. You can open the terminal, or you can simply open a notebook here. Now, my exercise is based out on the notebook. So I have opened the notebook. Okay. The first command I have to use in order to install any missing package, I can use this. Okay. Now there's an exclamation mark. For your knowledge, I have also mentioned the significance of this exclamation mark. So this at the beginning of a line in a Jupyter notebook is a special syntax. It tells Jupyter to run the rest of the line as a shell, not as a Python code. Okay. So let me take this and I'm going to come back here. Okay. You can run it. And if everything would be fine, you are going to get the output here. Okay. With the installation in place. In the meantime, this installation is happening. I can show you the piece of codes I have taken. Okay. The first piece of code is uploading a file to S3. So if you want to do it using notebook, you can upload a file to S3. The only thing you have to change the name of your bucket. You have to change the name of your file, the one which you want to upload. Okay. So I can take it from my terminal if you want, or if you remember, you can take it from there. Okay. So this was a file we had created, my sample data CSV. Okay. So let me say this. Here you can use a bucket name. It's your choice which bucket name you want to use. Do you want to use this bucket which you had created from command line, or do you want to use a one which you had created from the console? Let's say for a time being, I'm taking this one which I had created from the command line. Okay. So this is my bucket name. Now, what is the name in which you want to store the data? Means object name I'm talking about, or object key I'm talking about. Let's take a same name, for example, okay, as your data files. Let's execute this code. I'm taking this code. Let's go back and take it here in your notebook. Currently, if you want to verify, we don't have any object present here. But as soon as I'm going to run this command or run this code base, let's see what happens. So if everything would be fine, you can see upload successful. And how can you verify? You can verify using a refresh button. Okay, so one way to upload your data is using program or is using SDKs. Okay, you could also perform upload action from here if you're planning to do it from the console, or you could refer the command called AWS S3 CP. Okay, let's say if I will be taking you back for all the commands, you can see CP is a command. Okay, this particular command copies a local file or S3 object to another location locally or in S3. My requirement was from local to S3. You can also see the syntax here. Okay, now another code base which you can add in a notebook, that is if you have to download the file locally. Okay, so here I have explained everything as a part of this code base, like each and every line I have explained in form of comment. Let's say import Boto 3. So Boto 3 is the official SDK, software development kit for Python. If you want to write it by yourself, you can write it like this. Okay, then you have to define some variables. So we are using Boto 3 to connect to the Amazon S3, and these are the variables I have defined that is storing the name. For example, I'm taking these variables. Okay, now obviously I need to change the bucket name. Okay, I have taken this bucket name, so let me take it here. What is an object name? This is my object name, everybody. I'm taking it. Okay, and third variable is a local path where I'm talking about this is a downloaded sample. This downloaded sample.csv file will be the name of your file in your local, okay, which is going to be saved. Now, next thing is we are going to create a client object for the S3. So how can you do that? If you want to type it by yourself, you can type it in this way, boto3.client, and then you can define in the bracket the name of the service. Okay. Next thing is you have to take the file object name from the S3 bucket, and then you have to download it. You have to save it locally as a local path. So we have this particular method which you can use for the purpose. Finally, we are going to import the pandas library, a powerful Python library for working with tabular data. Now we have a CSV file, or you can have the XLS file, anything, okay, or any type of data you can have in any format. Right now we're talking about a CSV file. Okay, so you are typing here import pandas as PD, and then you can create a data frame. So you're using pandas to read the CSV file. You just download it into a data frame. And finally, you can display the data frame as a table. So let's take this piece of code and paste it here and type df. So as I told you, I have taken the comments here in order to understand what this code base is doing. Let me ask you a question. What all of you are expecting when I am going to trigger or execute this code base? Let's see. When I am going to execute this particular cell in the notebook, let's see the result. If you have provided all the details correctly, you will be seeing a file. So from this particular code base, you are accessing or fetching the content which is present in your S3 bucket locally. You're downloading it locally. Okay. If you will go here, you can see this is the downloaded sample.csv file, which got downloaded locally. Even you can see it here. Let's say I'm opening another terminal because in this terminal, I have my Jupyter notebook running. Let me change my directory and let me say type downloaded sample.csv. You can see the content here. So few things you have to remember if you want to practice this demo. One thing is you should have a user configured with the relevant permissions. What was the relevant permissions? S3 full access I had given to my user while I was adding the permissions. Second thing, you should have all the prerequisites in place. So now if I will again go back to the prerequisites, let's see. These were the prerequisites for this particular hands-on. You should be having an active AWS account. You should know how to create the S3 bucket. We have covered that. You should have a S3 bucket created in your account. Okay. You should be having a Python setup on your local. You should have a CLI installed. You should have a Jupyter notebook. Once you are done with this, if you want to terminate the process, you can always press Ctrl C. Okay. So in this terminal where my Jupyter notebook is running, you can press Ctrl C if you want. So now let's quickly conclude what we have learned till now or what we have gained as an understanding. So if all of you has followed all the instructions I have shown you from start till now, we had started our journey with the importance of AWS in data science or how AWS help you out in data science. We talked about benefits, we talked about key features, then we basically developed our understanding on creating and activating an AWS account. Once we had the account ready, we had a basic walkthrough of the console with the MFA enabling, like multi-factor authentication enabling. We created an IAM user. We talked about policies. We talked about what are different ways to interact with AWS services. We explored CLI. We explored management console. We explored SDK. We set the billing alert in order to be alerted if something is wrong. We also got an understanding like how can we explore the charges associated with our account using Cost Explorer. And finally, I shown you how you can upload your data set in the AWS or S3, which is a simple storage service or a single source of truth using Jupyter Notebook. And how can you fetch it? So if you are good till here, you all are prepared in the cloud or you are ready to deploy your workload in the cloud by uploading the data sets in the cloud. Thank you very much for watching this video and I'm going to see you all in the next video lectures.